We're beginning this morning with our opening song, and that is, "We Welcome You, Spirit."
We welcome you, Spirit, together here to love one another in ways you make clear. We lift up our hearts in joy and open our minds. We welcome you, Spirit, in this holy time. Welcome your Spirit as we gather here to love one another in ways you make clear. We lift up our hearts in joy and open our minds. We welcome you, Spirit, in this holy time. We welcome you, Spirit, in this holy time.
And now we move to our time of lighting the unity candle. So I light this candle each week, representing that flame of spirit that's within each and every one of us. Most houses of worship will have a candle that they light to represent that divine presence. And I invite you that if it serves you and you would like to have your own candle lit in your space, that you feel free to do that, so that as we begin and come together as a spiritual community, we have our lights shining through us, but we can also have a candle in our area, just symbolically. Welcome to the Louisville Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Rick McCollum, and I'm the spiritual director. You'll notice that we have changed a couple things in our format today, and so we're going to give this order of service a try and see how it serves us. So we know here at this center that we're an inclusive community and that people have many different ways to find and worship the God of their understanding. So we want you to know that wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you're welcome here with us. And we're glad that you're here today. So thanks for being a part of this. And now I want to turn it over to Vicki Jeter, our practitioner of the day, to do our opening prayer, and then she'll lead us with a spiritual reading.
I just invite us to take that pausing breath. Individually, at first, take a breath for yourself and allow yourself in your own space to more fully arrive. Notice for just a moment where and how you are, taking a nice deep breath and exhaling slowly down to a point of relative stillness, recognizing that as we continue to breathe, we begin to breathe together. In spirit, it's one space, one time, one breath. And in experiencing it consciously, we are one. In this moment, with great privilege and pleasure, I open this time of the Sunday morning service for Louisville Center for Spiritual Living, recognizing the presence of spirit in each being here and each being represented here. And in that unity, I realize this day that Reverend Rick is the voice of spirit speaking to spirit, such that every person here is served and serving a good and a greater good for each of ourselves, for this community, and for our larger human community. Thank you, thank you, thank you, presence of life. I simply release it and let it be, and so it is. And now it is absolutely my pleasure to do the sacred reading for this morning. And I'm just tickled. I'm tickled with this topic today, and I'm tickled with the opportunity to share this particular reading with you. And one of the reasons why is because it drops back into our understanding of some Taoism, in that each of us has a way of being in God that we're born with. And for those of you who might not have ever heard this before, that in Taoist terms is called your Pooh. And that's where Pooh Bear comes from. So I'm going to start with a couple of quotes that come from Ernest Holmes and the Science of Mind. There is nothing in life that says you must keep walking down the same street. But if you keep walking down the same street, expect to arrive at the same place. Principle is not bound by precedence. This means there is no law in the universe to perpetuate old limitations, but there is a law which responds to our greatest vision at the exact level of that vision. It all depends on what we do with it. In Taoist terms, as demonstrated by Winnie the Pooh, the essence of the principle of the uncarved block is that things in their original simplicity, their original divine pattern, contain their own natural power. There is nothing you have to do to access this power. It is a natural part of you that has been with you from the very beginning. This natural divine power has its own pattern that makes use of both expected and unexpected means for fulfillment through each and every one of us. Staying within the flow of its simplicity often means surrendering what the intellect says about how things are supposed to look, or how they are supposed to happen, how they are supposed to be. Each new moment contains the full potential of every possibility. Amen.
Thank you, Vicki. And now we move to our song before the talk. And today's song is 100 Ways. This is by Alicia Archibald.
There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. At least 100 ways for me to receive the countless blessings, and so I believe there are
All right, I hope you enjoyed that. And can you take in that message that there are at least 100 ways your good is coming to you? It's the truth for each and every one of us. And there are so many ways that good can come into our life. This month, our talk series is called One Journey, Many Paths. As spiritual beings, we're all on a spiritual journey. However, each one of us travels our own unique path. And your spiritual path and practices may not look like mine or people around you because it's your own. There are many paths to the one power, one presence in the universe. Today, the talk is a clean slate. So I ask you, have you ever experienced or had a point in your life where you wanted a do-over, a second chance, a clean slate, so to speak? Then you knew you could make different decisions. For many people, when we have this second chance, the clean slate, there's both a mixture of excitement and terror at the same time. You see, there's an allure to a clean slate, that empty canvas for your life. Some of you might call it the freshly tilled soil, just waiting for you to plant the seeds that you want grown in your life. So there's both hope and there's fear in any of life's transitions. When you consider things like parenthood, I remember a friend telling me when my first child was born, I looked around and I asked the nurse, well, where's the owner's manual? They weren't quite sure what to do being new parents. There's fear and hope for many people when they go through a divorce. Maybe the change for you is a career change, or you're moving locations. You see, any kind of loss or success can really bring up this sense of hope and fear, and it kind of comes up at the same time for us. There's a mixture of it. Anytime that we find ourselves offered this clean slate, sometimes we intentionally seek the clean slate, and other times it's thrust upon us. It can be unwelcomed or unwanted. A clean slate always offers us the opportunity to tap in to the source of creation, an infinite potentiality, to lots of potential, if we're willing to look at that. So today, I want to share with you an example of a clean slate story. It's from my own life. And so I hope that you will get to know me a little better as I share this story. I've had some people ask me, Reverend Rick, where did you come from? Reverend Carolyn said she knew you, but where have you been? You haven't been here at LCSL since I've been here. And that's true. I was the senior minister at the Center for Spiritual Living in Parker, Colorado, for 3.5 years. It was a wonderful experience that I could not have planned any better if I had tried. In March of last year, do you all remember 2020? The doctor told me that it was not a matter of if I was going to die, it was when. He thought it was going to be soon if I didn't get some immediate treatment. He told me that I was in severe heart failure, and he wanted to implant a defibrillator in my heart. He wanted to do that surgery the very next morning. Well, that was a lot for me to take in because it was new information for me. I felt the need to let my church board know what was going on. For one thing, if I didn't make it through surgery, I didn't want my board to think that I was withholding information that should have been shared. So we planned the surgery for a week later. Now, as fate would have it, that was the week that COVID-19 hit the area, and all surgeries were put on hold. So I had to wait for 2.5 months before I could have that surgery. At one of my follow-up appointments after surgery, trying to figure out what was going on still, I asked the doctor, how much altitude was a factor in this heart failure? And he said, oh, it's a big factor. You see, we were living outside of Denver, Colorado, the mile-high city, and Parker, the town we lived in, was even higher in elevation at 6,000 feet. So Tom and I discussed, was it worth staying here where I loved my work, or should we move back to sea level so I would feel better? I had been a nurse my entire career until becoming a minister 4 years ago. Both of these professions had me caring for others. Now I realized there was an opportunity for self-care. It wasn't an easy decision, I'll tell you, to leave my dream job and retire, but I realized that I needed to walk my talk. I had been teaching people for years to do self-care, and now it was time for me to make the choice for my health. I resigned as senior minister at my center. We sold our home, actually in 5 days, which told me Spirit had a hand in this, and we moved to Florida. This was a clean slate for my life. Now, yes, I felt better and certainly could breathe easier at sea level. And as scary as this big change was for me, I want you to know that part of my driving force was a faith and a trust that Spirit was guiding me. Spirit was guiding me each step of the way to something even more important. I was open to unlimited possibilities. I knew that there was new potential for me with a clean slate, but I wasn't quite sure what that was. So staying open to Spirit was so important. After 3 months of living at sea level and resting quite a lot, I had one more surgery to help slow down my heart rate, which is now controlled by a pacemaker. My Florida doctor said, Rick, I'm not seeing all the problems your medical chart from Colorado described. I think you're going to live a long and healthy life. Well, you can imagine a little surprise I had listening to that news. I came home and told Tom, I need to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life because the doctor doesn't think I'm going to die very soon. When we have a clean slate, we have the opportunity to evaluate our life, to consider if there's something we want to do different, or to look at what we value. Then we can consciously create a new life. Or we can live by default like we had been and just let whatever come to us. I knew with certainty that I value spiritual living, that I value my spiritual path, and I know my purpose is to help people awaken to their spiritual magnificence. I loved my job as a minister. Some of you might remember when Reverend Dr. Ken Gordon spoke to us a few weeks ago. He shared in his talk about, besides managing our health and our wealth, that we needed creative expression and loving relationships. Well, working with a spiritual community offered me both the avenue for creative expression and to develop loving relationships. I was meditating on what Spirit wanted me to do with this clean slate. I wanted to be sure that I was consciously choosing a spiritual path that would build on my ministry that I've been doing. And then one day, out of the blue, Vicki Jeter called me. She asked if I would be open to hearing about an opportunity I need with LCSL. My first reaction, I'll tell you, was no, I'm not moving again. But then Spirit gave me a moment of grace. And I heard myself say to her, well, I'm open to listening. By the end of that conversation, my heart was wide open. I was excited about how Spirit was showing me some ways that I could step into ministry again, some ways that I could provide direction and stability while Reverend Carolyn did her own self-care. I also learned that I could stay in Florida and serve in a virtual manner, so I didn't have to move again. As many conversations unfolded, one of them with Reverend Carolyn, she shared how comfortable she would be if I was the one taking over her baby for her. You see, I had done all of my practitioner training under Reverend Carolyn. I was the first board president of the Louisville Center for Spiritual Living. So this community has always had a special place in my heart. Had I not had the heart failure issue come up, I would still be in Colorado. If I was not open to continuing my spiritual path, even though it didn't look like what I had planned, I would not have heard Spirit's direction when it said in a still small voice, listen to what Vicky's saying. Had I not allowed Spirit to provide me the clean slate, I would not have been available to serve the Louisville Center for Spiritual Living and be here with you today. So I'm grateful for this clean slate and for the excitement of new beginnings. Meister Eckhart said, be willing to be a beginner every single morning. Do you wake up with that kind of an attitude? Let's begin today. Let's see what new things we can create today, Spirit. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, finish each day and be done with it. You've done what you could. Some blunders and absurdities no doubt crept in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day. Are you ready for a clean slate? Maybe you've been handed a clean slate already and you're wondering what to do with it. I know that this pandemic has changed many people's lives. Some have lost jobs. People have been separated from friends and loved ones, and that has created a lot of open time, and for many a longing for loving relationships. Can you see new ways of connecting with people through this time? Or are you just waiting on it to all end? Consider what you value in life. You can ask yourself, what brings me joy? That will help direct you to what you value. What allows you to feel creative expression during your day? There are many things that might be. How can you cultivate loving relationships in a different way than in the past? Is there something you can do to support your own health at this time? Realize that whenever you birth anything, and that can mean getting a clean slate, giving birth to something new, it's generally preceded by pain and messiness. Think of it as this example. Before we can enjoy the home remodeling project that we have planned and are so excited about, we must first contend with destruction and disorder that can temporarily look and feel worse than how it started out. Emotions that come up as we clean the slate can be difficult to experience and manage. I encourage you to stay with it. Emotions are your inner GPS. So pay attention to your thoughts and their subsequent emotions. Consider, are they moving you further away from or closer to Spirit? In his book, Living the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes says, the starting point for creating a better future for ourselves is to deliberately free our minds from the mistakes of yesterday and feel that they no longer be held against us. They no longer need to be a liability. We cannot make adjustments to the past. We have to make them in the present. It is not going to be any good to sit around and cry over the past or bemoan our fate. Because in the very day in which we are living, we're creating our tomorrows, which will become monotonous repetitions of our yesterdays. How then shall we do this? And he's talking about how shall we create the tomorrow that we want to experience. So he says we must arrive at some practical way, some definite and concrete method, and deliberately use the law of good, just as we would any other law in nature. In my clean slate after leaving Colorado, I had the opportunity that I could mentally focus on when I was going to die, or I could spend my mental focus on looking for the blessings in life, being in gratitude. I couldn't change anything about the past, but I certainly could create a future that was loving, joyous, and fulfilling. I didn't want to focus on my past and fret over what caused the heart failure. I knew my spiritual work was to look for how Spirit could use me right now, with the talent and ability that I had, with the opportunities that were opening up for me today, to be in the present. In Science of Mind, I have been taught when I consciously return to the source of my being, the divine pattern which already exists within me springs forth into manifestation. When I go into meditation, I'm clearing my mind of the chatter. Some of us call it the monkey mind. And I return to the source, to God within. And all confusion can be healed in this place. I invite you this week to look at your life. Each day, you can create a clean slate, at least mentally, and then you can choose what thoughts, what actions, what kind of life you want for yourself. Think about what actions will help keep you calm and serene. I want to share with you 5 habits to bring into your daily practice to help develop your feelings of inner calm. And just so that you know, I'll put these in our weekly update so that you'll receive them Tuesday if you're not taking notes on this. The first thing that we do is to take time to notice the level of calmness in your life, your body, your feelings, and your mindset, and let go of any thoughts that don't support your inner calm. Breathe. Number 2 is to structure your schedule to allow for more calm-producing activities. Now, I bet for most of us, some spiritual practice can help with this habit. Things like spiritual readings, listening to uplifting music, meditation, contemplation, prayer, breathing, yoga, Tai Chi. There are many activities that will help us to tap into this inner calm and produce more of it in our life. The third thing is to realize self-sabotaging things that we say to ourselves, the things that keep you from feeling calm. Be mindful about caring for yourself. Talk to yourself as you would a trusted friend. The fourth thing is to fortify yourself with positive self-talk to help put you back on track if you become overwhelmed or if you lose your temper. Getting upset with yourself isn't really going to help. And then the fifth thing is to find support. Everyone needs people to keep them motivated toward positive strategies. As human beings, it's easy for us to get off track. Our practitioners are here to help refocus us on the path when we allow life events to take us from it. Don't be afraid to reach out. Reach out to one of our practitioners or myself. Our contact information is at the bottom of your weekly emails. So we want to be available and support you as you need it in your spiritual growth? Will you choose to be happy, peaceful, and calm? It's your choice. I have one final clean slate example with some wisdom that's been shared by Reverend Jane Beach. I know many of you enjoy her as much as I do. And this is what Reverend Jane shared. Change and loss go together. Change involves letting go of the old to embrace the new. I said I wanted a happier, peaceful life, but rocking the boat of familiarity was uncomfortable. Just how badly did I want to be peaceful and happy? Finally, I became willing to feel the sadness of loss while embracing the newness of the life that was calling to me. It's a process, and it's worth it. I thought that was another great example of how to see moving into a clean slate and how it can create both fear and happiness in our lives. But we have to be willing to do that work, to let go of the past. And now let's move into our time of meditation. I invite you to take a few deep breaths as you turn your awareness to spirit within. If it helps, you might want to place your hand over your heart space. This will help you focus your attention to this area. Deep within you, you will always find God waiting for your attention, waiting for you to turn within, always ready to welcome you with open arms, with a loving embrace. And so we breathe in to your embrace, Spirit, to that place that we meet with you. Spirit, open our minds to the thoughts that have been brought up today. Help us to focus on what keeps us in the feeling of the joy of life, the life that we have been given. Lead us as we rock the boat of familiarity. Help us to see a bigger vision than in the past. Open our spiritual eyes to see the possibilities, to welcome new experiences in our life, to find new ways of living our truth. Help us, Spirit, to remain in gratitude at all times. And as we move into a time of silence, speak to each one of us, Spirit. Let us know what is next for us. How can we live more closely with that divine presence shining through us? Thank you, God, for the blessings of this life and for the freedom to choose our attitude each and every day. We choose joy. We choose peace. We choose love. Thank you. Thank you, Spirit. And now I invite you to take a few deep breaths to signal to your body that it's time to come back to this time and space reality. Namaste. And now we move to our prosperity portion, and Vicki Jeter is going to be leading us.
Thank you, Reverend Rick, and thank you for that fabulous offering. Oh my goodness, so touches my heart, and I have a feeling that if we could, we would just be, standing in ovation for all of the good that we've been given and for the blessing of your experience. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. And on that field of great flow of Thanksgiving, we come into our prosperity time with my assistant, Miss Pat, who in consciousness is holding the space for all that we've been given in your sharing of prosperity with us during giving time and beyond. And in the chat, as is our way, you will find the address if you'd like to send a check. Remember, we have our Givelify as well. And then there's always places where you can donate, such as through the website or through the weekly newsletter. There's a place there that you can click and donate. And we so appreciate the continuous flow of our good, which comes through and back around and through and back around. And so now our prosperity affirmation, I'll read it once and then we can say it together for anyone who might not be able to see it in the chat. Excuse me. Today, I claim my good, health, prosperity, freedom, all the good things of life given clearly and deliberately to a child of God. And together, today, I claim my good, health, prosperity, freedom, all good things of life given clearly and deliberately to a child of God. Now, I just want to invite us to take a breath together. We're going to shift from our prosperity time into announcements for this week. Wonderful things happening through our community now. The first thing that we want to announce is, let me make sure I've got these in the order that, yes, our board meeting is happening this Wednesday, February the 10th at 4:15 Eastern Time. And if you would like to join, you just click on the same link that you click on to come on Sundays. We would be delighted to see you. And then next, actually, I'll probably make room for Reverend Rick if you might want to say something about this. On the 25th of February, we're going to start our first class since Reverend Rick came as our spiritual director, Exploring Roots of the Science of Mind. It's 8 weeks on Thursdays from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And there'll be a Zoom link provided by Rick. Now, this is important because the Zoom link that he's going to use for the class is not this link. It's going to be a special link. So if you want to join that class, you need to make sure and let Reverend Rick know. Or if you get to one of us, we'll make sure that he gets in touch with you, but you need to be on his list. And also, the investment for the class is $150. And if you've taken the class before, you do have the option to audit. And if you audit, it's not the full fee. So you can talk to us about that as well. And then Reverend Rick's email is revrick, that's REVRICK, 888 @gmail.com. And that was a lot, so I'm just going to take a breath. And the last announcement for today is a workshop that's coming up on February the 27th. This is actually a workshop that I'm facilitating. I'm very excited on becoming your own best friend. And I was just absolutely tickled that Reverend Rick did touch on that today. So as you heard Reverend Rick talking about being your own advocate, self-care, really talking kindly to yourself, if any of you, kind of had a spike come up about that, this is going to be your opportunity. It's 4.5 hours and it's a love offering. So there isn't a fee that you have to pay to be able to attend. And make sure and let me know if you plan on coming, because I need to let the people that are going to be there know about some supplies that you'll want to have with you. And I do believe that's it for announcements.
All right, so let's move to our benediction. And know that as you go from this place, you go guided, guarded, and protected. You're under the umbrella of the Louisville Center for Spiritual Living. You're part of a spiritual family, and you are held in the embrace of the divine. So go forth into the world, sharing the love, the joy, the peace, the excitement of life with all of those around you. Know that you are blessed and be a blessing in the world this week. And so it is. And our closing song today is I Am Whole.
I am whole, I am complete. I lack nothing, have no need. Blessed beyond measure, joy overflows, glorious expression, shining light, sharing love, bringing peace. I am whole, I am complete. I lack nothing, I have no need. Blessed beyond measure, joy overflows, glorious expression, shining light, sharing love, bringing peace. I am whole, I am complete. I lack nothing, I have no need. Shining light, sharing love, bringing peace. Shining light, sharing love, bringing peace. Shining light, sharing love, bringing peace.
Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Now we're going to unmute. You can unmute yourself and have our time of sharing. And Vicki is going to be leading that.